Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and I guess there's a part 3 to this. I did a review of these Knipex hose clamp pliers. I really like them. I think they're an excellent design. Is there room for improvement? Of course. And then I did another one contrasting these snap-ons. The snap-ons have some strengths and some weaknesses. And there were lots of great comments. I thought I'd try out a few of the comments as well as give you some rationale for what I was thinking. So, first of all, some people suggested I cut, new carves or new channels. Get that to focus here. It's pretty cold down here. New channels into here to try to make up for only those 2 angles. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's going to fix really anything, but you'll see where I end up, and maybe there's a better solution than this. This has a lot of strengths, so does this. They are different. Some suggested that once you grab a hold of a hose clamp here, because this is so strong, you can easily slide it back and forth. And yes, that is absolutely true, and I can do it fairly well with these, but yes, this does it better. However, I did go to a test vehicle, and I found 8 potential hose clamps that were not the screw style like this. Of those, 4 were this style here, which these pliers do not work well with at all. And then of the remaining 4, 2 of these kinds of clips were accessible by a large pair of pliers like this, and only one end of those was really something that I could grab and literally move once it was locked into that position. Because you have 2 choices. You've got this choice, basically straight on or at a fairly strong angle. This is really close. This actually was more handy than I thought, this particular angle, and in fact there may be some testing that led Snap-on to that particular angle there. However, I did discover that it is fairly limited, because if you can't wiggle the pliers around, even if you can wiggle the hose clamp, there were only 2 of the 8 that I could really get a good clean line on and be able to move. But that was just the vehicle I was working on. Anyway, I'm going to move on from these to a few other suggestions. One popular suggestion was the Knipex twin grips, and as I kind of went through my testing, and I had to tie them all together because I was tired of shooting them across the room, testing these things. First thing, yes, this sort of works. I have not had great success with it with these kinds of hose clips in my testing, and it has a fairly limited range. Might be good on nuts and bolts, but hose clamps, if you look at this, to be functional in your hand at this size, if you look at that, this is already out of reach, and this is not a very big hose clamp. So it is limited there. If I go down to a size that it fits, if I can get one into this indentation, I certainly can't on this side, simply because that's a function of it, and I found it tended to pop out, even when I got it into this screw channel. It just didn't seem like that great a solution. If you've had luck with it, great, good for you. If I'm careful, I am able, but it does tend to pop out. However, I did have better success with this style hose clamp here, using the Knipex twin grip. That one seemed to hold it fairly well. I was surprised. That's in there. Good enough, if you don't need this a lot, but a lot of appliances, as somebody also mentioned, they need something that's affordable that they can use for appliances. And I found something, but we'll get to that. Anyway, so this, yeah, it works for small hose clamps, but not as well. And I figured also, before I forget to go into this, I think both Knipex and Snap-on might be able to open up another product line. Many times hose clamp pliers don't need huge leverage, they need clearance. I think this would make a nice sized hose clamp plier. It's even smaller than this 180 Knipex, and the market for these has probably been emptied out, because everyone's going to go after these guys if they have a choice. Which would you go after, and why? This thing will do almost everything this smaller one will do, Plus you get the needle nose. I mean, this, yeah, clearance issues, but that's not usually a big deal here on this size. So I think this market is now dead. Everyone's going to go with this. So what could Snap-on do? Well, they could fix this by turning it into a hose clamp plier. So other suggestions, engineers. Well, engineer and van plier. Here is screw extraction from engineer. This is probably the worst. First of all, it's a tiny reach. Second, it is liquidy, slippery up in these things, and these just pop out. If I can even grab them. I mean, you look at that line there, it's like a slip and slide. As soon as you try to grab it, it just fires right out the end. So those are out. Tried some van pliers. Here's the big van plier kind of lineman version. This, not too well there, but this is the winner if you're trying to get these kind here. This actually works really well because of that nice wide screw holding mouth. Check that out. I mean, that is in there tight. Oops, popped it out. It's not a very strong hose clamp anyway, but I can easily grab that, and I'm not really at great risk of it just flying out of there. That's actually pretty good as long as I can keep it straight. That's in there pretty solid. So that's a winner if you're working with the small ones, and I know somebody was talking about dishwashers. If you can get these in there and you don't have very large hose clamps because this has got a very small reach, that's not too bad, but there might be a better solution. I'll get there. Another thing I was thinking about on the smaller side is Knipex could make a smaller version, like a 150. You don't need, again, that high leverage, and this is a fairly big bite here. So, you know, this was already the small version. I think it would be cool if they made an even smaller one, because here's a fairly large hose clamp, at least in my world, and I can easily grab that. So I could even get by with a smaller one, and of course I've got tons of leverage, so I don't need longer handles. What I need is clearance and dexterity. So I think Knipex could easily make a smaller version, and this would be a winner. In fact, maybe better than this. You could have a big one and the small one, and eliminate kind of the middle-sized one. Little van plier. These are useless, 100%. I don't know what you could do with these things. They just fly out of there. Again, slippery slide ramps right there. So those van pliers or engineers or whichever screw extraction don't work. These engineers here, the slip joint, these are probably the worst. If you look at that, I guess I could put some Teflon or grease on there or something and make them even worse, but I can't really grab anything. It just slides right out the front end of those things. Kind of dangerous. I've snapped myself. The moment you try to move, it just pops right out. And when it pops right out, you end up with a stung finger. Snap-on, they've got a screw extraction on their pistol grips. And if I go ahead and try that on a small one here, it's not horrible. I think Snap-on, if they wanted, could probably get that a little bit better if I get that centered. The reason is this is a little bit different engineering. There's a dent in there, a little different than the engineers. So if I can get that hook at the bottom, it does actually hold fairly well. Not the greatest, but definitely not something that you would want to use, daily. Then I thought, gosh, what about something unusual? Maybe something like this. There's potential there. Unfortunately, the reach is not very great. But if you line this up, these jaws are actually pretty good, which got me thinking, gosh, what about these? These, in fact, actually, these are Snap-ons here. They are pretty good. They're in there pretty tight. If I can line them up. The adjustment isn't quite as easy, and I was thinking maybe a little bit more aggressive. I thought, wait, I've got just the thing. Look at these. Remember those from a long time ago? These channel lock, kind of these, I don't know what they were, quick adjust or something. I don't remember what they were called. But these actually have the crosshatch very aggressive, and those grab and hold quite well. In fact, look at that. Those are dynamic. I love them. That's a ticket there. And in fact, check this out. People were asking about the double-ended ones. Look at this. That's in there pretty good. It's nice and wide. Nice flick there. It seems to hold together fairly well. But I like the smaller ones even better, because if you've got something this size, I can actually get this loop down into that lower part of the jaw there, roll this into wherever it intersects based on that. This is really strong. The question is whether or not that's enough of a release on the hose to make it slide around. Sometimes the hose, especially if this is really compressed a bunch, smashed into the hose, it might not expand enough for you to easily slide it. But it's a pretty quick way to adjust it too. So you've got kind of the Knipex option. If I make it even smaller, open it up, maybe something like, try to get it in there. Right there, yeah, that's about the minimum. I am scratching up against it at this end, but this is in there really solid. So I think Channellock's got a winner here for hose clamp pliers. They could make them a little bit more dedicated, but that's the big takeaway here. I think there it is. I never thought I'd be promoting the Channellock, whatever that quick grip thing they've got, as really good, whatever these are called, hose clamp pliers. But that's actually in there fairly tight. I've got plenty of room to wiggle around. If I had a couple of light channels in there, or maybe even just a little V shape, it might really nail it, because that's in there quite well. And it gives me kind of that faster adjustment. I can go up. Here's a big one. This just about, if I work really hard, I might be able to get that in there, right there. A little gutsy. Not grabbing it super hard, but maybe a pair of these things if I have some bigger hose clamps. Look at that. Little too big there. Drop that in. Whoop, that one's a little bit outside the range. Let me see if I can hook it up into that lower part of the jaw. There we go. That's actually in there pretty good. Not as good as dedicated hose clamp pliers, but I can sure wiggle it around. These are my favorite though. For these double ones, works great. And that's in there snug. And for the singles, they're not bad, although I prefer either the Snap-on or the Knipex. Pile that down there. That might be the limit. Whoops, thought I had it. Yeah, there we go. So if I can get that into that spot, it holds it fairly well. That's in there pretty tight. So anyway, that's what I discovered. Thanks for the comments. I don't know what else I'm missing here. I'm sure you'll have some more suggestions, but that's what I discovered trying these across the suggestions posted so far. Anyway, with that, Doc out.